all right, when you're ready for me to start, I will tell Nicole the story.
Okay, listen. This isn't television, so you don't have to ask her questions. It's radio.
Right.
Just talking. Monologue.
I was just a teenage lad in high school. Are you ready for me to start? Mm-hmm. And every Friday night, my grandma, and I used to meet my grandma at her sewing shop. And she would then go down to Kroger's and she'd pick up all the food, like victuals and stuff, like calves' brains and pig knuckles and anything she could find that's left over that wasn't sold. And she'd load it up in a big bag, and she'd take it home Friday, and she'd throw it into this great big pot. Okay, there was onions and carrots and sweet potatoes, and never was it ever the same twice. There was pork brains in there, and there was ox tails where they cut the tails off of cows and stuck it in their tongues, cow tongues. So she would chop the tongue into about 6 or 8 pieces. But she'd start boiling it on a Friday night. But she'd have one that had been boiling all week long, so that when Saturday afternoon came, my dad and my mom, me and my sister, my twin sister Janice, we'd have to go down to Grandma's house to eat supper. She would serve it. Each of us got a big bowl, and she had this big pot, and she had a big ladle, and she'd reach in there, and she'd pour it out, and you couldn't bear to look to see what was in your bowl. You just ate it. You better eat it, because Dad would look at you, and you'd really get it if you didn't eat it. This is what we did on Fridays. This is what we did on Saturdays. One Saturday showed up, and we went down and we went to Grandma's house, and we walked in. Dad walked in. "Where are you, Ma?" But nobody answered. So we looked all around the house. Where could she go? Maybe she went downstairs. You know, every now and then she'd get these ball jars, and if she could get a whole bunch of tomatoes, she'd boil up the tomatoes and put them in the ball jars. Or maybe she'd get a whole bunch of beets, and she'd boil up a whole big pot of beets, and she'd put the beets down in the ball jars and tighten the lips, and she'd take them down and store them on a shelf down in her basement. And all it was is just a big hole in the ground with wooden steps that would go down in it. Turned the light on, but we couldn't see her, nobody down there. And hollered, "Hey, Ma, you down there?" Nobody. Nothing. But the strangest thing is that all we could see was 2 big yellow eyes looking at us. And then one eye would blink, and another eye, and it would open, and the other eye would blink. And the eyes were like this, like slits. So that we knew it wasn't Grandma's eyes, because hers was round. And these eyes were shaped, like this, like cat's eyes, okay? And Dad says, "What could that be? What is it?" So he went halfway down the steps, and there was a great big huge alligator down inside the basement. He says, "How did that thing get down there?" And no sooner got the words out of his mouth, that thing came after him and chased him right up the steps. He slammed the door. Grandma's house was probably a couple blocks away from the fairgrounds. They had big tents. People would come and look at all of the freaks. They'd have a woman that had a hair running all the way down her back like a horse. Another lady was so fat that she couldn't sit on anything. She was so big and fat. They knew the carnival was over because the fat lady would always sing. But there was one act that everybody come to see. It was Jojo, the alligator boy. Was a little tiny guy. He only stood about 3.5 feet from the ground, but he'd get up on a platform. He'd say, "Jojo, come and see Jojo," and he'd take this cane and rub it on the ground. For one thin dime, you can see Jojo. He walks, he talks, he crawls on his belly like a reptile. He can sing and whistle the Star-Spangled Banner. So everyone would go into this big tent, under this tent, and they had like baseball bleachers that everyone sit around. and they had a big box. It was about 14 or 16 feet long, had bars on the side, and there was something inside of it because the box would rock. Sometimes it would go, and that little guy got on top of the box, reached down, he said, "Come out of there," reached down and pulled some latch, and then he stuck his cane like this, and all of a sudden, this huge alligator came out of that box. And it came out so fast, the box went one way and the alligator went the other. With its legs going like wheels, hit the ground. And it headed for the bleachers. And women screamed and grabbed their children. Grown men gasped and scrambled to get out of the way. And it was just pandemonium. Well, the alligator took off, and we found out about all this because the little guy who ran says, "You found JoJo." And Grandma did have a coal chute, because in the wintertime they had a big side where the coal truck would take lumps of coal and throw it down, and part of the basement probably had a lot of water in it. It could splash around there and it felt good, right? Probably through that hole and it was down on the elevator. So what we did, we got about 4 or 5 guys from the carnival to come over. They got lassos and they caught that thing. One guy got it around its snout, another around its tail. They caught it around in the middle. They dragged it up and they got it. They finally got that JoJo back into his box, carted him away. But then I said, "Dad, where's Grandma?" One of the guys says, "Hey," he says, "look at that. Look at JoJo. Does he look like he's bigger around now than he was when he left the carnival? God, he's had a big meal or something." And so I says, "You know what I think he ate Grandma." "Well, now what are we gonna do?" My dad's smart. He says, "We're not gonna buy a coffin, that's for sure." We got a free. Plus, we won't need a funeral. Just say a few words over it to throw the alligator into the hole. No coffin will save a whole bunch of money. Grandma don't know any difference. And that's the way it happened. Okay, are there any questions? Yes.
No, that's not true.
How can you tell? Huh?